All right, guys, welcome to Finance Friday. This is Jerry Fetta, owner, founder, CEO of Wealth Dynamics, coming to you once again, like trusty old faithful, with another Finance Friday. We've been doing these guys almost 4 years. Isn't that incredible? Every single week without missing a beat. And tonight, I'm going to be talking about how to avoid the financial noise, the nonsense, the distractions. Okay, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is the things that derail us from our financial goals. They pull at our attention, right? I can remember growing up, as a kid, my family was big on the news. So the news was always on. We always had some, old white guy on the news anchor, talking about which, Middle Eastern nation we just bombed, or who we were at war with now, or what's happening with politics. And I didn't really know what that was. But as I started watching and learning, I realized that happened all throughout my life. Okay, it never stopped. That stuff is always there, always has been, and I think it probably always will be. How do we avoid that? Right. And more importantly, why would we want to avoid that? Why would we want to turn this stuff off? The reason why is because it destroys our financial goals and our financial progress. Okay. And I'm going to talk about tonight how to identify when we're getting involved with nonsense. What is nonsense? How do we avoid it? What do we do to combat it? How do we stay on track with our financial goals? That's all stuff we're going to cover tonight. Okay, now before I jump into this, I want to go over a couple of ground rules. So first things first, again, I want you guys to make sure that you have a purpose for being here tonight. Okay, a purpose, because this is an hour. We're going to talk for an hour about finances, how to avoid the nonsense. You have other things you could do with your time tonight. You have other places you could be, more entertaining shows you could watch, but you're here, and I want you to think about why. Okay, why am I here? What am I trying to get out of this? What's my purpose? Second thing is we're going to cover a lot of different viewpoints. And so we're going to run into things that are basically what is known as a fixed idea, things that we might have picked up, opinions, right? Viewpoints, ideas, concepts that we picked up from other people or observation or whatever. We never personally looked at them for ourselves to see, like, does this make sense? Is this applicable? Yet for some reason, we're really emotionally attached to some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight. So I want you to have the viewpoint and the idea that there's other stuff to know. There's other stuff to learn about than what we already know. If there's nothing left to learn, why be here? There's nothing left to learn. Why be alive still? Right. And so I want everyone to think about, okay, what can I learn here tonight? Thirdly is I want to make sure that we have the idea of using and applying the information. Okay. We're going to end this course tonight. All of us are going to wake up tomorrow on Saturday. Will life be better and different, or is it going to be the same thing? Right? I watched it, didn't apply any of it, didn't use it, thought I knew it all, didn't have a purpose. And so my life is not going to be any different after seeing this information. Okay. The last couple of things, and tonight's not so much mathematical, right? So if I go over any concepts that don't make sense to you, any numbers, any math, any vocabulary that doesn't make sense to you, please stop and let me know in the comments. And then finally, as always, we will go live, right? We always go live in the very final 10, 15 minutes of our course segment. We'll do that again tonight. So if you're on Facebook, drop your questions in the comments. If you're on Instagram, or we don't have Instagram. If you're on Zoom, make sure you drop your questions in the comment. We'll go live and answer that as well. Okay. Now, without further ado, how do we avoid the nonsense? Okay. How do we avoid the nonsense? First, we have to decide and define what is nonsense. Okay. What in our lives is nonsense? What are we talking about? Because there's a lot of stuff that we could classify as nonsense. And so I wanted to give you guys first the definition from the dictionary. So the word non, right, means without or lacking, right? So if something has nonsense, it means it doesn't have it. It's lacking. It's without, right? Sense refers to sound, practical, and intelligence, right? Sound, practical, intelligence is something that is sense. If it makes sense, it is sound, it is practical, it is intelligent, right? So if something is nonsense, it means that it's lacking sound, practical intelligence. Okay. We can all think of things, people, situations that lack sound, practical intelligence. We all, and for me, when I defined this word and I looked it up, we all hear the word nonsense and we're all familiar with it. But when I cleared this word up and I looked at the definition, it almost was comical to me, right? Like, think about something that was like literally lacking sound, practical intelligence. Usually that's the kind of stuff that's funny to watch, right? I remember when I was a kid with my dad, we went RVing one summer and we went to this place called Ninilchik. It's in Alaska. It was this beach and there's a river. And so there's people that would go from the beachfront, because it's gravel, and they would back their trucks down to the river and they would basically push the boat out to the water, pull the boat off the trailer and float it out there. And so I remember watching this one time with my dad, these guys that had never done it before, right? And what they were doing was complete nonsense, right? The boat was floating away from them. One guy tripped and fell in the water, and it was just like watching a circus almost, right? And it was comical for me to watch because that was lacking sound practical intelligence. Okay. Now, further defining this, what does the word sound mean? Sound means competent, sensible, or valid, right? Meaning if something is not sound, it's not competent, it's not sensible, and it's invalid. Think about that. I know some of us here are finance people. Some of us here are investors. Some of us here are business people. I think we even have a client on here that's an engineer. When something is not sound, it's not competent, it's not sensible, it's not valid, usually we don't rely on it. Right? I think engineering is a perfect example of this. Imagine getting like plans for a bridge where it's like, all right, the guy who built the plans is incompetent. It's not sensible. The bridge doesn't make sense. And it's also invalid. It's not actually a concept that will work. We're not building that bridge, right? Because who knows how many people will die crossing it because it's a bad idea. And then lastly, we have practical. Practical means adapted or designed for actual use. I'm actually going to use the thing, right? Who has ever bought something that didn't actually have practical application? You thought it was gonna, you buy it and you're like, I have no use for this, right? It's one of those, 1999 as seen on TV things where it's like a back scratcher that also holds your coffee mug and keeps your telephone, and you're like 3 a.m. watching this commercial and you're like, that's a life hack. That seems like a really good idea. I've always needed to scratch my back, hold my coffee, and talk on the phone all at the same time. Voila, problem solved. I'm going to buy this thing. And then it goes in some storage closet and you never use it because you were like, man, I don't remember even buying that. Okay, I have a friend back when I was probably in my early 20s. He would buy things online in his sleep. I kid you not. This guy, he would go on Amazon while he's sleeping and he would buy things, and he would have no recollection of buying it. And he would have random Amazon packages showing up at his doorstep. Right. This was before the day of Amazon Prime. Right now, we always have random packages showing up at the doorstep. I don't know what they are, but no one was sleeping when they bought them. This guy would be sleeping. Right. And so one time he bought a didgeridoo in his sleep, which is one of those Australian, it's like a giant long tube you blow into. And it's like, brrr, right. He bought one of those in his sleep. Right. And I don't think he ever used it because it wasn't practical. It was not something he had a use for. Okay. So something to be sensible has to be practical. Finally, it has to have intelligence. Intelligence meaning having the faculty of reasoning and understanding. Having the faculty of reasoning and understanding. These definitions are super important because we're going to dive into this tonight. And I want you to think about it in this context with these terms, with these descriptions. Okay. So what is nonsense? Nonsense is something that is not sound, practical, or intelligent. It lacks competence. It lacks sensibility. It's invalid. It's not adapted or designed for actual use. It does not have the faculty of reasoning and understanding. That would be the definition of nonsense. Okay, if this is resounding with you, I haven't even talked about the topic yet, but if you're thinking of and identifying things that match this and you're like, man, I just realized this thing is nonsense in your life right now, whether it's news or social media or politics or whatever, if you're resounding with this, I want you guys to share, make sure that others see this too. Now, what are the forms of nonsense we're going to talk about tonight? Okay, because here's the problem. When I get involved in nonsense, it's like matter and antimatter. It's going to get rid of the things in my life that do make sense because I'm occupying my attention with that instead. Okay. So what are forms of nonsense? There's 2 main ones that I identify in my life, right? There's literal nonsense, right? So a person, topic, or communication that is nonsensical in and of itself. Okay. Like it is nonsense. There's no question about it. We all agree it's not nonsense. Okay. And usually those are the ones we can laugh at, right? Early in 2020, everyone bought all of the toilet paper, right? Like diarrhea was not even a symptom of the virus, but everyone was like, yep, I better go buy all of the toilet paper. Everyone can laugh at that. I've seen memes about it because they're like, man, that for sure was nonsense. Like some people got a little crazy. They overreacted. They bought all the toilet paper. That's nonsense, right? Now, the other type of nonsense is a little bit harder to detect. This is usually nonsense surrounding something that is not actually nonsense, right? Meaning there's a real thing happening. And then surrounding that, there are communications and ideas and messages that are nonsense. Even though the thing at the core of it is not nonsense, all of the stuff around it is nonsense, right? And so it's kind of like we have, the important thing here, right? But around it, we have this orbit of nonsense. stuff that doesn't make sense, stuff that's not useful, that's not practical, it's not valid, right? And so usually I would say this first type is not what we get involved in. Every once in a while we might, and honestly, for me, if I ever get involved in type 1 nonsense, we're going to go ahead and classify that as type 1 nonsense, official terminology. If I get involved in type 1 nonsense, it's usually to amuse myself, like getting involved in something that's just dumb, right? The other type of nonsense, usually we get sucked into it. We get pulled into it, right? Type 2 nonsense, the stuff that we get tricked into thinking it's important. We get tricked into thinking it matters because the thing in the middle of it matters, but all the stuff on the outside doesn't. Okay. So think about this, right? Type 1 nonsense, type 2 nonsense. What are some examples of type 1 nonsense? Who remembers back in 2012 when the world was going to end because the Mayans said it was going to? In my opinion, that's type 1 nonsense. Okay, for one, it didn't end. Nothing close to the world ending happened. For two, like the Mayans, they're not even around anymore, right? They're not even like a civilization. So we're gonna in 2012, we're gonna trust that these people who couldn't even make it through their own civilization are predicting when ours is gonna end, and theirs ended thousands of years ago, right? So for me, that was an example of type 1 nonsense. Right? We use the toilet paper as an example. That's an example of type 1 nonsense, right? So that's something where we get involved in it. We probably know it's nonsense. We probably know it's not going to help. If we're doing it, it's usually just for entertainment or for it to be amused for us in some way, shape, or form. What about type 2 nonsense? What is an example of that? Okay. I put negative news about the Middle East. Okay. And hear me out on this before we get upset people that log off. Middle East situation is real. That's not nonsense, right? That happened. That's a serious situation. But how many of us have seen political posts or videos floating around or articles floating around or misinformation floating around regarding what happened in the Middle East, regarding what happened in Afghanistan, that if we look at the definitions up here, it wasn't sound, it wasn't practical, it wasn't intelligent, it wasn't competent. With something like that, it wasn't sensible. Some of the stuff I see is like, man, that lacks complete sense. Not just sense from a logical standpoint, but from an emotional standpoint. It's one of those, why would you share that type of things, right? It wasn't valid, right? It's usually not practical. We're not actually going to use the information. It's not reason, it's emotional, and it doesn't cause more understanding. Nonsense, right? And that's a perfect example because we all would look at the Middle East situation, what just happened in Afghanistan, and we have a sense of reverence and a sense of sympathy and grief and upset over what happened. And so I think we mistakenly sometimes let things slide under the rug as far as calling out, yeah, this happened, that's real, but that right there is nonsense, right? And so what I want to point out is, how do we identify this? Because what happens, guys, is, and this is crazy how much of this has been going on in 2020 and 2021, is we're going along, we're tracking, we're following the blueprints. We're doing our big 3 challenge. We're training, we're learning about money, we're saving, we're earning, we're doing all the right things. And then whichever piece of nonsense that triggers us personally comes into our universe, all of a sudden, boom, we stop all that stuff. And we get fixated on this little thing that's happening, right? Right? Not even the thing that happened in the Middle East, a post about the thing that happened in the Middle East, what a news anchor said about the thing that happened in the Middle East, what the news anchor said about what the president said about the thing that happened in the Middle East. And we get caught up on that. And then we stop training. We stop learning about money. We stop increasing our income. We stop saving. We stop investing, right? Happened in 2020, right? COVID happens. That's definitely not nonsense. That's something actually happened. There's a lot of misinformation, negativity. The economy then, had a tank right after that. It dipped. There's another real event that really did happen. That's not nonsense, but then there's a bunch of other stuff surrounding it that is nonsense. And so I saw so many people last year just sit on the sidelines financially. Okay. Some of them clients of mine, most of them not. Most of them people that I would see on social media in 2019 and in 2018, they were posting about their businesses. They were selling, they were investing, they were growing, they were expanding. And now all of a sudden, we're seeing, memes being shared about the economy and how we're non-essential workers and we're going to get government subsidies. And it just becomes this thing where we stop producing, and then we start getting sucked into all the nonsense. And then what happens is, on the tail end of it, which for us hasn't happened yet, there's still continually more nonsense that keeps occurring. When the tail end does come around, the problem is the people that get sucked into the nonsense are actually worse off than before the nonsense happened. because they haven't made progress. And this one is important because this has been, guys, this has been freaking almost 2 years, almost 2 years of nonsense, right? And so in 2 years of nonsense, let's pretend it's going to go a full 2 years, maybe even 3, who knows? If I haven't done anything to improve my finances, if I haven't done anything to increase my income, if I haven't done anything to save more money, if I haven't done anything to invest, what is going to become of me, my family, and our financial goals? If 3 years go by and I specialized in why that old white guy who rules our country is better than the other old white guy who should have ruled our country, right? Like, so that's something that I point out and look at, and I'm like, man, that doesn't make sense. Okay, so what do we do when we come across nonsense? Okay, I want to give you guys what I do. This is, again, some of the stuff that I got from these definitions. The first thing that I look at is when I see something that it's got the sense of nonsense. It got a hint or a taste of nonsense, right? Where I'm like, that right there might be nonsense. I ask myself, is this thing valid or true? Okay, first off, is it even true? Whether it's news, whether it's social media, whether it's a post a buddy shared. I have some friends that I love. They're close to me. I have to unfollow them because I'm like, man, the stuff they're sharing isn't true. Right. And so when I look at it from that standpoint, that should be where the buck stops. If I can identify that it's not true, I don't even need to get involved. Right. Because I can automatically say that's not true. Now, not true doesn't mean that Facebook fact checked you. Okay. That's, to me, that doesn't mean anything. I don't know who those people are. I don't know who pays them. I don't know what their agenda is. Not true means I can't see my own for my own self data that validates it. Right. So I look at it and I'm like, okay, I see this. Let me go research that and actually find a credible third-party, unbiased source that validates it. Are there stats that validate it? Is there history that validates it? If it's not true, then no. Second thing is it sensible, right? Does it make sense? It might be true, but it might not make sense, right? So if it doesn't make sense, I don't need to pay attention to it. I don't get involved in things that don't make sense. Third, is it useful? Right? That's the practicality aspect. Let's say it's true and it makes sense, but I can't use it. It's not useful. Okay, then it qualifies as nonsense. I don't need to use it if it's not useful. I don't need to get involved in it if it's not useful because it can't help me. It's not a utility that I can have in my life that improves my finances, my family, any of that stuff, right? Number 4 is, do I truly understand it? Okay, I'm gonna use the example of what's going on in Afghanistan. I would venture to guess 99.99% of people don't truly understand what's happening there. Okay, all we know is if you're a Republican, all you hear about is the terrorists in Afghanistan and this and that. You know, if you're a Democrat, we hear whatever that story is about, if Joe Biden and this and that, and it's the Republicans' fault, and the Republicans think it's the Democrats' fault, and it just goes back and forth. There's no actual understanding of, okay, what's going on there? Why? Because I'm not on the ground. I can't see it. I don't see what's happening there. I don't see the interactions that are going on. I don't feel the environment. I don't know the history, right? So if I don't understand it, then I don't need to get involved, because if I don't understand it and I do get involved, then I'm going to be one of the people that starts spreading nonsense, right? There's consuming nonsense and there's spreading nonsense. Most people start with consuming and then they get involved in spreading it. Okay, it's kind of like spreading poop. I had an old guy tell me one time, the problem with playing in poop is it gets on your hands, right? And as soon as you touch other stuff, now there's poop on that too. If you don't understand it, it's like playing in poop and getting it on your hands and then spreading and getting on everything else. Okay. Now, the 5th thing is, do those sharing the nonsense understand it? Okay. This is the one that you have to look at, because I might look at it and I'm like, okay, it might be true. It might be sensible. It might be useful. I might understand it, but the source that I'm getting it from, do they understand it? Okay. People have a tendency when they don't understand things to actually share more about it. Usually when we don't understand things, we should stop talking about it. But most people sharing and communicating and talking and writing is a form of making sense of something. So when somebody reads something or watches something and hears something and can't duplicate it, they're more likely to actually share variants of it in order for them to repeat it and get enough repetition to then get a grasp in it and make sense of it on their own mind, which means, let's say it takes them 99 times of sharing it before they finally like, oh, I got it. That means that 99 times they shared incorrect information. They shared nonsense, right? How many of us read those? How many of us watched them? How many of us reposted them or texted them to a buddy, right? We're now perpetuating the nonsense. We're part of the problem at that point. Okay. So do the people sharing it understand it? And can I prove that they understand it? Here's the deal. If I can't prove that they understand it, then I'm not going to listen to them, which means every news anchor, you can't prove they understand what they're talking about. Politician, you can't prove that they understand what they're talking about. Social media poster, you can't prove that they understand what they're talking about because you don't know them. You can't go have a conversation with them. You can't go inspect where they got their data from. Okay, because here's the problem is what happens is, let's say I read this book, right? I read Blueprint to Financial Freedom, right? All of the data is in the book. The book, if you read it, you'll get exactly what the book says. I read it and then I verbally share it with somebody else. Okay. And then somebody else hears what I say and they're like, oh man, Jerry read this book. This is what he told me it says. It sounds like a really good idea. So I'm going to do it. But when I hear this other person share it with me, I don't read the book for myself. Okay. I'm now basing my decision on their ability to read. A, are they literate? Are they full of misunderstood words? Okay. And actually analyze the data and understand the data and apply the data and then share the data concisely and completely with me. The chance of them doing that is slim to none. Right? Which means in this case, I'm basing important life decisions with my finances off of somebody else's understanding of what they read. I don't know their ability to reason and use logic and analyze data. They might be completely incompetent. They might be illiterate. They might have listened to it on audio when they were doing 6 other things, including driving, and they heard like 5 words and they're like, that sounds like a good conversation piece with Jerry. I'm going to share that. Okay. Just an example with the book, but what if that's everything else? What if that's, news and social media and stuff that we see situations happening and we're taking other people's word for it, which means that we're trusting that they actually understood what they saw. I can't gamble on that. Right. Number 6, who is sharing it? Okay. This is important. Who is sharing it? What's the source? Okay, with sharing it, okay, there's the actual source. That's the first part. And then there's something called a via, right? Via means it's not the source. It's usually a route from the source. It might be like, let's say that we have, the mug and then we have the shadow of the mug, right? Because the light is shining. The mug is the source. The shadow is the thing casting off the source, right? So I'm looking at, okay, if I see this news story, right? That's automatically, to me, not actually a source. They're reading that from a teleprompter. Who got the story for them? That's the source. Because the news people, that's just the via. That's just the shadow being casted off the information. I read a Facebook post. Okay. Who's the source of that? Okay. Because they reshared it from someone else. They're being a via. They're sharing it. I want to go see who is the actual source. Okay. And that's something that most of us don't think about because we see it and we're like, okay, that's who's sharing the information. Realize most people don't analyze themselves. Most people don't look at data themselves, come to their own clean, true personal conclusion, and then share that conclusion. Usually they're going to repeat what someone else said. Okay. So where's the source? Who is the actual source? And what are the stats of the source? I want to look at what are their stats, right? If it's news, their stats are selling advertising. I'm the product. The advertising is the service. If I look at the stats and I follow the money on that, they're going to say whatever they need to say to keep me watching so they can sell more advertising. Does not matter what station. That's the business of the news. That's their business model. And guess what? Social media has the same business model. Do you really think Facebook would be free for no reason? Think about that. The reason is you're the product. They sell advertising. They sell your data. They make money on it because they have you using the platform for free. No different than you watching the news for free. Right. So when I look at the stats there, I can automatically start to conclude why the information is being shared. Okay. If there's nonsense, why is the nonsense being shared? Look at the stats. You'll find out. Number 8, what's their purpose? Is it to make money? Is it to scare people? Is it to create influence? Is it to get power? Is it, is it to discredit somebody else? Now, this is the problem. Again, if I'm not close to the source, I can look at the stats and I can assume, but sometimes I can't know their purpose. And if I don't know why they're sharing the information, I'm not running with it. Okay, this goes for whether it's politics and whether it's, health and safety, whether it's, geopolitical stuff with the Middle East. It doesn't matter. Why is the person sharing it? Why are they sharing it? Why are they saying what they're saying? And then this is a big one, guys. This is your own personal indicator. Do I feel better or worse as a result? If I read something, if I watch something, if I hear something and I feel worse after I get done with it, it wasn't good for me. Right. And if I feel worse after it, that means that that was its purpose. Think about it. When you're in a conversation with somebody in real life and you can see their face and you can watch their facial expression and they say something that makes you feel bad, you can tell like that person's being an asshole because you can see it and you know what they said and they know what they said. And you don't just say that on accident. It's no different than with news, social media posting, articles, videos. If it makes you feel bad, it's because it was intended to do that, which tells you a lot about their purpose and their stats. Is that really somebody you want to be associating with? And then finally, this is the deal breaker. If I involve myself with the nonsense, does it help me achieve my financial goals? Okay, almost all of the time, the answer is going to be no. Right? It doesn't matter if it's, 2012 and the Mayans are about to end the world, or if it's 2020 and we're about to run out of toilet paper and all die, or it's 2021 and the world's going to end because all of the other things happening in 2021. It doesn't matter. Those things can't help you achieve your financial goals. Because at the end of the day, there's always going to be another news story. There's always going to be another crisis. There's always going to be another politician. There's always going to be another social media post. Did you progress? Because they did. They came up with another story, another politician, another post. Did you make progress? Right? This is the deal. It's cause and effect. Right? Every single cause has an effect. So what is the effect of me watching negative news? What does it actually do for me? It doesn't make me more money. It doesn't cause my net worth to grow. It doesn't increase my passive income. It doesn't change what's on the news. Right? Like we're in an argument about which old white guy we should have voted for. They're both top 1%ers. They're both old. They're both white. Like pick one, right? You pick the wrong one. It doesn't matter. You can't change it. You watching the news about it, you watching stories about it, you posting about it, it's not going to change who's there. It doesn't fix anything. It doesn't help anyone. It actually makes it worse. Number one, you don't like that guy. Why are you giving him all that attention? Number two, you're now making wrong all of the other people, which is half the country that did vote for him. If you're a business owner, it doesn't matter what they think. Those could have been your clients. Those could have been people you helped. Those could have been friends. Because of one area, I've now alienated all these people. It doesn't make sense to do that. Cause and effect. It doesn't help me. It doesn't help them. If I was trying to create the right effect, if I was trying to grow my income, trying to grow my net worth, trying to grow my passive income, right? What would I do? It wouldn't be watch the news. It wouldn't be share nonsense on social media. It wouldn't be scroll on conspiracy theory TikTok videos for 3 hours, right? It would be go produce something, go get in communication with somebody, go help them. Well, guess what? I can't produce, get in communication and help somebody when I've cut them off and alienated them because we disagree on different nonsense. It's both nonsense. It doesn't matter. You guys see what I'm saying? Right? Now, the other thing to look at here is consumption versus production. Nonsense is almost always consumption, right? Me watching the news is a form of consumption. Me scrolling on social media is a form of consumption. Me looking at articles about, sickness and politics and whatever else is consumption. And it's not even good consumption, right? I would rather that you go do something that's consumption that you actually get something good from. Go eat a good meal, go watch a fun movie, like go on a vacation, go on a trip, go do something that actually gives you a positive impact, because you watching about, vaccinations and presidents and Middle Eastern and this and that doesn't help you. This goes back to how do I feel when I'm done with it, right? You consume, you don't feel good. It's the equivalent of eating too much fast food, right? Like if you're gonna splurge and go over on your calories, go get a steak, right? Go get something good. Go get a piece of freaking chocolate cheesecake, like something that's actually like, okay, I shouldn't have done that, but at least it was good, right? Don't go to McDonald's to get the biggest, greasiest, nastiest thing where you're going to be sick to your stomach the rest of the night. That's what happens when we consume this stuff. Consumption is always less than production. Always. In no scenario, in no circumstance are you better off with more consumption in your life than production in your life. You always want to have more production. You always want to have a net surplus of production over consumption. So when I'm watching this stuff, and here's the problem is it's disguised as helpful. It's disguised as important. Some of the stuff I'm saying, there's people who will watch this. They'll be like, Jerry's not patriotic. Jerry's not this, because I don't agree with their nonsense. right? So there's almost a pressure of socially needing to feel and act like these things are important because the majority of everything everyone else does, when they're not actually important and they're really just nonsense. And so I can make the choice. Am I going to produce, which means I get rid of this stuff, I ignore it, I focus on creating and expanding and helping and adding value and growing, and ignore all the other stuff, or I consume it. Because I'm consuming it, I'm too busy to produce. I'm too busy to create. I'm too busy to expand. Okay. You fast forward 4 or 5 years, client that consumes, all they have to show for it is they're an expert in things that don't matter and are outdated news stories. 5 years after someone that's done producing, what they have to show for it, passive income, they're out of debt, they're solvent, they have a higher net worth, their family is in a better position. And if all the nonsense was true, the guy who focused on production, the girl who focused on production is in a better position because at least they have the financial means to do something about it. You see that the guy that's not the guy, the girl that's focusing on consumption and nonsense, if they're wrong, like their life is like nowhere, it hasn't progressed. If they're right, but they're not in a position to do anything about it. And they still are just in a position of sharing fear and negativity. Okay, so I drew this out. I wanted to give an example of this. I also have to look at which stats am I being compensated for. Okay, I have to look at in my life, if I'm trying to improve my finances, what do I actually get compensated to do? When I put it on a graph, which ones make me money? Which ones don't, right? So production, let's say that I'm just a regular guy with a job, right? My stat that makes me money is going to work every day, doing my job, being competent, right? Being a professional. Those are the things that get me paid. And if I was to graph those and I looked at the increase of those actions, I would probably see a similar increase in my income. Right? Let's talk about finances. If I'm trying to increase my saving and my investing or paying off debt, there are certain stats that if I track and I improve those stats, I will improve those results as well. Okay. So if I produce, as you can see, I have this spike. Let's say I stop producing, right? It dips down here. I circled it right here. My income is going to follow, right? So I can see the upward trend of production matches the upward trend in income. The downward trend in production matches the downward trend in income. And then I pick it back up again. Boom, boom. And it's okay, guys, to have ups and downs. I'm not saying if you get sucked into nonsense, you're like an idiot and you're done for. No, we all go through that. I go through that. What I'm saying is what you do here matters, right? Do I stop getting involved and I catch myself and I correct myself and I go back to producing? I go back to adding value. I go back to expanding, or do I stay down there in the gutters? Okay, because all of us, we're going to get distracted from time to time. It's only a matter of time before it happens. It's what do I do when I realize it? How quickly do I get back on track? How long do I stay back on track for? Okay, because it's not too late. It's not this thing where I got sucked into the news stories and the Facebook posts and now I'm done with wealth dynamics and finance. No, get back up on the horse. That's the point of the message tonight. Okay, because in 5 years, I don't want to talk to you and hear the same story about what happened today with your finances because we didn't fix it 5 years ago. Okay, now here's the problem is when we see the income drop here, and we see the production drop here, that's because the nonsense went up, right? It's an inverse graph. The more nonsense I do, the less production I do, the less income I earn. Okay, because I don't get compensated for watching the news. I don't get compensated for sharing Facebook posts. I don't get compensated for being a keyboard cowboy. I don't get compensated for making other people wrong. That's not what pays my bills. That's not what expands my finances. So if I do it, I am alienating the thing that's going to produce income for me. Okay, and we can be in denial about it, but I want to point out it's going to happen either way. Okay, whether I admit that fact or not, it is the truth. And so if I don't admit it and I don't confront it, then I'm going to be continuing to basically kill my finances over whatever period of time I'm involved in the nonsense. And then afterward, I'm going to act like I didn't know what happened. And then I've got to get more nonsense in my life to distract myself from what I just did to myself. And it turns into an endless cycle. All right, so the other thing you got to look at is what are the stats of the people sharing the nonsense? What are they getting compensated for, right? So what are the stats of the nonsense sharers? What are they being compensated for? There are two groups here. The first group is those who are paid to spread nonsense. That is what they get compensated for. Now you would know why they're sharing it. Why is there so much negative stuff? Because they get paid to share negative stuff. They're called merchants of chaos. The more negative stuff they share, the more people watch, the more advertising they can sell. And it just is this entire monetization cycle. That is their business model. Okay. The second group, those who are not paid to spread nonsense, but they spread it anyways. They're violating what we just talked about on these graphs. They know that that's not production. They know that that's not going to increase their income, yet they do it anyways. Okay. These people are not financially serious. People that they know they're not going to improve their life and their finances by sharing the nonsense, but do it anyways. They don't care about their finances, which means they don't care about your finances, which means you shouldn't pay attention to them because they're not going to help you. They're going to give you counter intention on your goals. They're going to pull you backwards. They're a distraction in your life. You might be related to some of them. You might have went to school with some of them. You might have been best friends at some point, right? Doesn't mean that those things aren't true. You're not related anymore. That doesn't mean any of that, but it means right now, that's not somebody you should be focused on. That's not somebody you should be paying attention to because they're going to pull you back. And they might not realize it, and that might not be their intention, but we all know that that's the truth, right? So what is the real truth behind all of this? The real truth behind all of this is you can't change what's going on in the world. That's the reality of it, right? Like, let's pick one topic. Let's say that I don't like who got elected for president. How is my Facebook post helping? How is it changing that? Like last time I checked, if you want to overthrow the ruler of a country, it takes lots of guns and lots of people. And it usually takes other countries that don't like the country that's going to be overthrown, funding and influencing. That's how we got rid of Britain. France helped us, and we had a lot of people and we had a lot of guns. You're not doing that. You're posting on Facebook. You're watching Fox or CNBC or whatever your channel is. That's not helping, right? The virus that's going around, posting stuff, whether it's, you know, anti-mask and anti-vaccine, or it's mask shaming or vaccine shaming, that's not helping. You're not helping anyone by doing that either way, because the guy that doesn't want the mask, the guy that doesn't want the vaccine, he's not going to listen to you. The guy that does, and you're saying he shouldn't, he's not going to listen to you. You're not improving it, right? Like if you really wanted to force people to get vaccinated, you would line them up, imprison them, and force them to get vaccinated. If you really didn't want people to get vaccinated, same thing. You would prevent it from happening by using force. Nobody is doing that, right? And so you can't change it. Why focus on it? If it's not something you can help, if it's not something that helps you, why focus on it and give it any attention at all? It's going to do what it's going to do. 5 years are going to go by, 10 years are going to go by. People are going to forget about it. And then it's going to be down to what did I do during that period of time with my life and with my finances, because I do control that. I can help that. And that is something I can help other people with. Okay. So posting nonsense is not going to change who's president. Posting and reading nonsense is not going to change masks, gloves, vaccines. Sharing violent violent content does not help anyone in the Middle East. Right. When we had all of the riots in 2020, I remember seeing so many videos that I was surprised like who was sharing them, of people freaking beating the hell out of each other in the streets. How does this help? How does that help anybody to watch that video, to watch a guy get beat to death in the street? How does that help? It doesn't. You're not helping anybody. And so to watch that, to associate it with, to share it, is actually spreading more nonsense. Right. So I want to have you, when you find yourself doing that, when I find myself doing that, ask yourself, why are you getting involved? And are you in these following groups? People that they perpetuate and they share and spread nonsense, they fall into different groups. The first one is people that are emotionally distraught. They're either upset, angry, or sad. Okay. Am I an upset, angry, or sad person? And if the answer is no, why am I in that group? Why am I acting like that kind of person? Why am I associating with those type of people by doing similar activities? Right? That's an important question to answer for ourselves. The second thing is, there are groups of people that they share nonsense just to make others wrong. It makes them happy. They get off on pissing other people off. They get off on making people feel bad about themselves. They get off on being antagonistic, right? Am I somebody that does that? Am I a person that gets off on making other people wrong, by invalidating people, by making them fearful, by upsetting them, by offending them? And if I'm not, why am I associating with that group? Why am I doing things like a member of that group would? Okay. C, those that reinforce their own opinion. Usually those that have to reinforce their own opinion have the weakest belief systems, because they can't actually just be right. They have to constantly prove why they're right, which means they're doubtful. Right? Like if I'm solid on my belief, you can't shake it. It doesn't matter what someone else says. It doesn't matter what news video comes out, what article comes out. I believe what I believe. I know why I believe it. I'm not going to accidentally catch a different belief system. So why would I need to go around reinforcing my belief system by shouting my own opinion at other people so that I can feel more right about what I think? That doesn't make any sense, right? So am I part of the group of people that is basically insecure and doubtful about my own beliefs and opinions? And if I'm not, why would I be sharing content? Why would I be consuming content like I'm a member of that group? And then finally, there's the group that profits by upsetting others. Okay, there's the perpetuators, the guys that shared the vias, and then there are the sources. Okay, am I one of these sources? And if I'm not, why am I acting like I am? Why am I sharing their message? Why am I, putting on the same uniform as them, creating division, creating fear, creating scarcity, creating hate, creating people to shrink and stop making progress in their lives? Because all of the problems in the world, guys, would be solved if all of us just got to work and improved our own lives. I can't fix you. You can't fix me, but I can fix myself. And I can't fix myself if I'm focused on you and you're focused on me. So if I go to work and I improve my life and I improve myself and I improve my finances and everyone else has that same mentality, guess what? We now have 330 million individuals improving their lives. We're going to have a pretty damn good country and a good economy and a good environment. And it's going to be different because we're all focused on what we can control, which is ourselves. Okay, so what is the bottom line on this? The bottom line is, when we talk about this from the standpoint of wealth, the good social wealthy families, like those that actually, like, you read about them and you're like, man, I could aspire to be that way. I could be proud of those people. I want to be that way. I like that. Those families, they don't play with nonsense. It's true, right? There are groups and wealthy people that do, but those are either people that are suppressed or suppressive. Right? An example of someone that's suppressed would be, let's say, a dirty politician that's being paid off by, some giant corporation. And the giant corporation can blackmail the politician and say, hey, we've been paying you bribes. People already think we're shitty. They don't know you're shitty. We can tell them that you're shitty. And now everyone's going to know that you won't win the next election. He's suppressed. So he would share the nonsense because he's afraid of what would happen to him. You see that? So he's suppressed. He might be wealthy. He might be well off. He might have a good family, whatever, a good life. But because he's suppressed, he has to share the nonsense. That's not good. And that's not a social thing to do. Right. And then there's the suppressive, the guy that's making the bribe. Right. He would do it just because he's like the Grinch, right? Like, that's just his heart. That's his thing that he likes to do. So if I'm trying to build wealth, I'm not going to get there by sharing nonsense. And if I do, it's because I'm one of these two groups. And I don't know anyone on this webinar that wants to be a wealthy suppressed family or a wealthy suppressive family. And if you do, get off the webinar, because I don't want to help you get there. That's not what I help people do. I help you get into the first group. And the first group, they're not negative. They don't need to make others wrong. They don't share nonsense. They don't get involved with nonsense. They don't perpetuate it. They're not used as vias to spread nonsense out from these groups down here. Right. So I want to wrap this up. I'm going to give us all an action plan here before we wrap up tonight. What do we do with this information? Right. Because at the beginning of this, I said our focus should be, how do we apply this? Right. So here's what I do. This is my real life action plan. If you want to follow it, you can. Okay. And it will help. Number one is no more news. Does not matter what channel, what side, no more news. Turn it off forever. Right. I haven't watched news since I accidentally watched it as a teenager when my parents had it on in the living room when they're cooking dinner. Like, I was probably 15, 16, and I automatically knew that sounds like something I shouldn't watch. So I have never watched the news. Okay. And I don't know about you, but for me, that's been helpful. I don't get involved in this stuff. It doesn't pull me in because I'm not watching it. Right. No more politics. I don't get involved with politics. If you want to vote, great. You don't need to try and convince other people to think your way. You don't need to get upset when your guy doesn't win. The whole thing is rigged anyways. Right. And whether you believe that or not, what I'm saying is that you getting fixated on it doesn't help. Okay. I don't get involved with it because I don't think it actually does anything. There's a quote from Mark Twain saying, if voting actually did anything, they wouldn't let you do it. Right. And maybe that's true. Maybe that's not. But what I know is I'm not upset over who's president and who's not. I'm not doing the left versus the right thing. I'm not doing all the stuff other people are doing. And because of that, I have more bandwidth to focus on improving my life. Right. Because at the end of the day, those guys, they're going to help their families just like I would help my own. They're not going to try and go out of their way to help me. If they were going to, they would have by now. I need to focus on improving my life. Number 3, no more mindless scrolling. If you find yourself brain dead scrolling on Facebook, scrolling on Instagram, scrolling on YouTube, scrolling on TikTok, scrolling on whatever, Just like catch yourself and cut that off. We've got to stop doing that, because that's how we get sucked in when we're not occupied with purpose and something that actually builds our attention in the direction of our goals. That's when we get pulled off on the sidelines. Number 4, unfollow all sources of nonsense. Guys, I've been on an unfollowing spree. When I log into my Facebook, the reason why I've took social media for 2 reasons. Number 1 is to advertise and market my business. That's the primary and almost only reason why I use social media. Number 2 is to see positive, uplifting encouragement from people that I'm connected to. So when I see someone I'm connected to not sharing that, there's an actual unfollow button, and I physically do press that. If they share something about the president, does not matter what it says, boom, unfollowed. They share something about the COVIDs, doesn't matter what it was, boom, unfollowed. They share something about the Middle Eastern stuff, doesn't matter what it was, boom, unfollowed. Why? Because all of the stuff we mentioned tonight, that's how serious I am about it in my life. I have friends that their net worths are higher than me. They don't even have social media, right? Like they make their money on social media. They do advertising and commercials and marketing, but they don't have a personal profile. They don't use it, right? Because they don't want to be involved in it at all. Okay. So that's one thing that I do. And then number 5 is replace your nonsense with your big 3 challenge. We talked about this last week. This is called the Big 3 Challenge Journal. Okay. So I wrote this earlier this year. And so the Big 3 Challenge Journal is every day I focus on 3 things. Okay. First thing is this triangle. First thing is, did I learn about finances? I want to check that box off every day. 10 minutes on finances. Doesn't matter what it was. Preferably it's Wealth Dynamics University or one of our books, but something about finance is better than nothing. Number 2, did I earn income? I do something to earn income. I check off the box. Number 3 is I reconcile and rate my transactions and expenses. So I log into my mint.com app or whatever it is I use, and I look at what did I spend? I rate it on the 1 to 5 scale, like the book explains. Boom, I'm done. That will take you 30 minutes. I guarantee between news and politics and mindless scrolling and getting involved in social media, we all have 30 minutes available, every single one of us. And so what I want to challenge you is for the next 90 days, get a copy of the journal, and I want you to stop the nonsense. The only way it stops is in your life, and that's only if you stop it. So it's up to you to say, okay, I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to listen to it. I'm not going to share it. I'm not going to scroll through it. And then I've got to replace that activity and that time with something more productive. If you're watching the stream tonight, that more productive thing, go learn about finances. Okay. The thing that's more certain than who's going to be president is the fact that you currently trade your time for a currency called the US dollar, and you have no idea how it works. Think about that. That should upset you more than who's president. Why aren't you studying about it? Why aren't you learning about it? Why do you know more about Biden or Trump's backstory than about the very currency you work for? You trade your time for, and you will for the rest of your life if you don't figure out how to invest and how to grow your finances. Okay. And then again, earning income, like you're going to earn it anyways. Why not earn a bunch of it? If you're going to make it, like make a lot, let's go all the way up. Let's see how high we can get it. Let's make it a really big number. And then again, rating your transactions and expenses. Everyone likes keeping more money. The way you do that is doing this 1 to 5 game in the journal. So for the next 90 days, I want to challenge you, stop the nonsense, be an enforcer against it instead of enforcer of it, and then focus on yourself, work on yourself and your finances for the next 90 days. Now I'm going to say one last thing, and it's going to sting, and we might lose some people. If you are unwilling to do that, if you're unwilling to weed out the nonsense, it is because you agree with, and involve yourself with nonsense more than your own goals. Okay, I'm going to repeat that because, again, I said this last week with something different, but it applies here too. If I'm unwilling to weed out the news, if I'm unwilling to weed out politics, if I'm unwilling to weed out mindless scrolling, sources of nonsense, it is because that I agree with, and I involve myself with those things more than my own goals, more than my own finances, more than my family's future even. Okay, let that sink in. Now, most of us are not doing that intentionally. We're not bad people saying, screw my family and my goals and my finances. We're not thinking that way. We're doing it unintentionally. But here's the thing. If I run over your foot with my car and it's on accident, does it change what happened to your foot? No, I still ran you over. So it doesn't matter whether I did it intentional or I didn't do it intentionally. Me being intentional versus not, that's a different thing altogether. The thing is I still ran over your foot. I still harmed you. You still got to go to the hospital. You still have medical bills. So whether you're intentionally getting involved in nonsense or unintentionally getting involved in nonsense, it's still creating the same negative outcome. Does not change that one bit. Okay. So I'm going to end on that note. I know that's a little heavy, but that's something that I think everyone should think about and consider. What I want to do here is I'm going to open this up for questions. Okay. Questions, comments, thoughts. Now, if you have them, drop them on Facebook. If you don't, that's okay. If you have them on Zoom, we'll go live and answer your questions here too. The one thing I ask is keep it positive. Okay. If I said stuff tonight you didn't agree with, that's totally fine. You don't have to agree with everything I tell you, right? I'm not your God. I'm not your Pharaoh. I'm not your president. I'm not your guru either. Tony Robbins, but it doesn't mean that we can have a good conversation. So drop your questions. Let me see what we have here. We have on Facebook. Good to see you, Sean. Jen says she would like a copy of the journal. So let me drop that in the comments really quick. If you go to jerryfetta.com/journal, you can get a copy of it there. Jen, you should be able to click on that link and it should work. If not, reach out to Nano Aquino and he can get you set up with the right link. Let me see what we have on Zoom here for questions. All right, looks like we have a comment from just one on Facebook. Just one says, agreed. Let's keep our eye on the mountain and away from any and all nonsense. Keeping our eyes on the prize, wealth, abundance, and prosperity in all areas of life makes every difference in our ability to achieve financial freedom and happiness. That's awesome. Just one wants to get the book too. Yeah, guys, use that link in the comments. I just saw it pop up. I think that does work. So if you click on that, you can go to jerryfetta.com/journal. You can get a copy of our Big 3 Challenge journal. Again, that's 90 days. All right, let's see what we have on Zoom. Tamara says to make sure I'm on mute, I have a toddler. Yes, Tamara, you were on mute. We did not hear your toddler. Although that would have been funny. Avery says, like Charlie Munger says, bad behavior spreads. That's very true. Again, it's almost more true than good behavior. Good behavior is something we have to work for. It seems like bad behavior just comes natural and spreads easily. So that's a very good viewpoint. All right, I think that is all the questions and comments we have. So I either did a really, really good job tonight or a really, really terrible job tonight and nobody understood anything. Hopefully it's the first one. Guys, I think that's all we have. What I'm going to do is I'm going to log out. 2 things. So again, if you want to get the Big 3 Challenge journal and you want to take up my 90-day no nonsense challenge, go to jerryfetta.com/journal. Okay. jerryfetta.com/journal. You can get 1 copy for $4.99 or you can get 4 copies for $14.97. That's buy 3, get 1 free. Other thing is if you want to get a copy of my book, Blueprint to Financial Freedom. Okay. If you would like to get some practical steps, how to apply and grow and improve your finances, go to jerryfetta.com/B2F. That's the letter B, the number 2, the letter F. That is all we have for tonight. Thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe. Stay away from the nonsense this weekend, and I'll talk to you guys all next time.